Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. And you know what that means. It's time to get nerdy, y'all. Welcome to episode number 256 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. I am Lam, also known as Mr. Nice Guy, and I'm joined by my comrade in gaming commentary, the Miggity Mac, also known as Maction. Mac, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty darn well, particularly, Mr. Nice Guy, because I got a bit of very good news this last week.
No way. Should we tell the people, or should
Yeah.
you tell the people what that news is?
I think I will. We are going to be appearing live to do a live recording of Two Nerds in a Pod Friday, February 17th at 6 p.m. in room B110 at the Portland Fan Expo.
Let's go.
So
Let's
it's,
go.
yeah, we're going to be there. We're going to do everything live. We're working on just some slight tweaks to the show that you can really, it's like if you're going to be live, you may as well spice it up just a little bit because of a studio audience.
That's right.
So
That's right. Live
that's
studio
exactly what
audience.
we're going to do.
It's going to be good,
Yeah,
man.
I'm real excited about it.
Now, I'm from the Pacific Northwest originally. Mac currently resides in the Pacific Northwest. So this is going to be a couple days of fun, of shenanigans.
Mhm.
I haven't told you this yet. I think we should try to document some of it. I think it'd be fun
Oh,
to maybe hit a retro game store, maybe eat some good food. I heard there's a crazy place called Voodoo Donuts that has some really, really good donuts in Portland that are well known. I think that there's a lot of fun stuff we could do and really just hang out. So I'm so excited.
absolutely.
I'm mostly excited just to do the pod live, Mac. That's going to be an awesome experience.
Yeah.
So hey,
Yeah,
if
it's gonna be kind of fun because, like, we've never done studio audience before, so it's gonna be exciting, I think.
I was going to say one of the most exciting parts about it is that if any of y'all are in the Portland area in Oregon, if you're a listener who is here live or who just listens every week who we've never met, come out. Please come out.
Mhm.
Tickets are not that expensive to the show. And please, if you see us, introduce yourself. We'd love to meet you. So,
Absolutely. So, yeah, that is definitely the most exciting thing to happen to my week. So, I'm tapped.
dude, when you told me that, that was the most exciting thing to happen to my week, too. Like, before that, it was like getting out and working on new jokes that I think are really funny. But now it's probably this. So I'm pretty hyped, man. I can't top that.
Yeah.
Well, Mac, I say we do what we do best and we hop right up in that gaming news, man. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Mr. Nice Guy, what's new in gaming this week?
Well, there's a couple things. And first of all, once again, this is episode number 256 of Two Nerds in a Pod, nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. Mac, we've got some doozies today. Let's start with this story. And I don't know if I got to send you this one in advance, but this is pretty interesting. It's about a game that's been wishlisted on Steam. This is on PCGamer.com, written by Morgan Park. The second most wishlisted game on Steam is right around the corner, and we still don't know much about it. With one impressive trailer and a logo that looks like it fell out of a popular PlayStation series, The Day Before has managed to garner as much interest on Steam as Starfield and Hogwarts Legacy. Here's what we do know. The Day Before is a survival MMO which makes or from the makers of asymmetrical horror game Prop Night. It's got zombies, cars, loot, and the constant threat of other players. It's been almost 2 years since The Day Before was shown in any substantial way, and now it's just a month ahead of release. Fnatastic, I think that's the name of the developer, says it'll soon be ready to share some raw gameplay footage. Ahead of that, let's talk about what they've said, blah, 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 blah. Mac, here's my question for you. Number one, I want to get your thoughts generally on the Steam wishlist system. A good thing for gamers in remembering games they want to buy, or a bad thing in building hype for games that we don't know much about?
Interesting. I hadn't really considered the flip side of that, but from my personal experience, It's been fantastic to help me remember what games I'm looking forward to, and more importantly, to keep aware of when a sale comes round that
Sure.
impacts that. For example, I've had Subnautica on my list for a long time, and I know because I got a notification a few days ago that it is on sale for a few more days. So I'm planning on picking that up. But,
Nice.
I've been planning on getting it for quite some time.
Sure.
That's where I find the utility of the wish list is for me, is mostly this is something I want. Let me know when there's a sale on it.
Okay, but Subnautica is not a game that you're going to forget about. Subnautica is a game that is established for people who want to know about Subnautica. There's reviews, there's gameplay footage. There's a lot out there about Subnautica. This game, The Day Before, I believe it's called, there's not a lot out there, but for some reason it's been able to
Mm.
generate hype, get on more wish lists than every game on Steam except for one, because it's the number 2 rated game. I just wonder if this, and I don't want to say predatory because that's a very strong word, but I wonder if it kind of results in gamers potentially wasting money on something that is not going to deliver. We don't have enough info, is my point. Good marketing, sure.
Yes.
Props to them for building hype. I just think it's
Mhm.
it's a slippery slope.
I suppose, but I don't know as I mean, I can think of any number of games that have been very successful at generating hype and not sticking the landing, that did it probably independently
Okay,
of,
fair.
wish lists and things like that
Fair.
before. I am, for various reasons, thinking right now of Cyberpunk 2077, and, I mean, yeah, I don't know as it's a large source of bad faith stuff going on, but then again, this is honestly, I'm legit, this is the first time I've really thought about the wish list for anything other than just a let me know when it's on sale button,
Well, I
essentially.
I see, and I use it for that, but I also use it for, hey, this is a game that looks interesting. Let me wish
Yeah.
list it so that I don't forget about this game because I'm going to
Yeah.
drive myself crazy trying to remember the name later.
And that makes total sense to me, and if I were the type of person who, like, bought current releases, or
Sure,
newer
sure,
games, then
sure.
I think that's how I would use it too.
Yeah, fair. Well, we'll see what happens. I actually went to go wish list this game, and the page is actually down. So I guess
Ooh.
the developers said that that's just a bug. It's not anything that people need to worry about, but that it is indeed going to be available. So it's just a temporary bug. We'll see what happens and if this game ends up being good. Wait, let's move on. Next news story. Action. This one is a tragedy, in my opinion. This is about a franchise, an IP that you're a big fan of, Pokemon. This is on Kotaku.com by Levi Winslow. An original sealed copy of Pokemon Yellow, reportedly worth nearly $4,000, was ruined by U.S. Customs and Border Protection after its seal was not only cracked, but its case broken and the front of the box sliced clean off in a wanton display of aggression against collectibles, the owner claims. That owner, who goes by the underscore master underscore of underscore unlocking, told Kotaku he was disappointed to see such senseless damage done to the now ruined collector's item. I don't need to read any more about this. This guy hops on a flight. He's packed up his Pokemon game that's sealed. It's rated. Um, it's an original Pokemon Yellow. Steam cut or not Steam. Customs cut the box open, ruined his game. Legally, Mac, you're a legal expert, or you play one on a podcast. Yes, they have the right to do this. Should there be some type of accountability for this? Not just in gaming, but generally.
Yeah, so obviously this is terrible. This is a travesty. Should never have happened.
Right.
And I actually, this may surprise you, but I've not studied much the interface of TSA, or rather custom US customs and collectibles law. So I don't know. I suspect that there is probably recourse of some extent, and because you do have a item that does have a rating, it does have some form of backing to when you say, "Oh, this is worth $4,000." There's something to back that up, a valuation. I think there's plenty of conversations to be had about the legitimacy of the valuations that we have on the video game market, but that is a argument for a different time. But that
Sure.
would make it easier to hopefully recover um, something
So
from
let me
this
okay,
travesty.
so let me ask you this. So you and I, to a
Mhm.
certain extent, we both love retro games. We both have
Oh, yeah.
some retro games, right? Um,
Mhm.
but I don't think either of us has a $4,000 A plus 9.2 graded sealed copy of a game. At least I don't in my personal collection. But let's say you did get one for whatever reason. You get a
Mhm.
sealed Mega Man 2.
Yeah.
How are you
You know me so well.
right? How are you shipping that home? How are you getting it home? I guess I kind of gave away how I would do it. Are you putting that in your luggage? Are you driving it across the country? Are you shipping it first class? What are you doing?
I mean, if I was the type of person that dropped that kind of money on a video game for it to be a display piece or for it to be because it's hard to say since video games are an interactive medium, it's hard to say that something that is sealed and encased in carbonate like Han Solo is anything other than a display piece, really. So when it comes right down to it, if I were the type of person that had a display piece, I think maybe I would probably just I mean, now I would certainly road trip it home.
Sure.
Previous to this event, I might have taken it in my carry-on, but, ugh, man, that's
Well, see, and that to me,
how would you have gotten it
that's
home?
the obvious solution is to take it in on a carry-on. You know, I don't know if he was. I don't know. I mean, they scan it, so it's like they scan it when you walk through, and they're not going to
Oh,
say,
well, now
"Oh,
hang on a second. Is there the possibility that the running it through the scanner is going to cause troubles or, like, ruin stuff on the inside? I don't think it would. I mean, it's not
I
like a magnetic tape like a VHS or anything.
Well, no, and
So,
the thing.
I don't
Well, I
think
don't
so.
think it could ruin it any more than it got ruined. But I get your point. Maybe that's
That's
what he
true.
was worried about. Um, so I don't know, man. I'm not trying to blame this guy. He's not at he or she. I don't know if it's a guy or girl. Is not at fault at all. I just think I would have taken some extra precautions with something that expensive. That's just me. So
It yeah, it's just a real big shame,
100%.
but here's to hoping that this person can get something recovered from that, maybe enough to get themselves a replacement game.
Sure, sure.
That would be ideal. But then again, it is one of those things where it's just that's one fewer A plus graded game in circulation, air quotes, or in collections.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating for sure. Mac, there's like other news stories. I don't know if any of these are that interesting to me, to be honest. We could talk about PlayStation VR too. We could talk about Riot being hacked and saying they won't pay for their source code.
Hmm.
Unless there's something you want to discuss out of those two, I think we could wrap the news for the week, man. We got a good topic for later. It's up to you, man.
Well, I'd actually like to hear a little bit about Riot Games being hacked. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I sure can, man. This is on GameSpot.com by Jason Finelli. After a tumultuous week, which included layoffs and a social engineering attack in its development environment, Riot Games has provided an update on the latter, including a ransom threat and assurance that the player data was not affected. In a lengthy Twitter thread, Riot Games confirmed that source code of three of its programs, League of Legends, Teamfight Tactics, and a legacy anti cheat platform, was stolen by the hackers. Riot received a ransom threat soon after the breach, but Riot has responded by saying, "We won't pay." So then there's a bunch of tweets, and it says the thread also gave some insight into what was contained in the stolen source code, including a number of experimental features that are in prototype, meaning they may or may not be officially released to the public. Riot also stressed that leaks in source code like this may lead to new in game cheats, but they are working to resolve them as quickly as possible. And then lastly, they confirmed that no player data was compromised in the leak, and that it just disrupted their build environment. So, I mean,
Mm.
there's really no debate here about people who do this type of stuff. Um, I don't know. What are your thoughts though, Mac? Maybe you have some legal perspective I hadn't thought of.
Well, actually, this does kind of go back to some legalese from the last year. Um, we had a couple of them that dealt with things like cheating software, and also things that dealt with the changes to how the federal government treated what constitutes unauthorized access to a system. Is it easier or harder to prosecute people who do hacking under the new rules? Spoilers, if you didn't listen to that one, it is actually harder to go after hackers
Yeah.
after some of the things. We can thank some dirty cops for that, actually. But that's neither here nor there. What I think is most interesting about this, not being a computer programmer or a game designer, is how exactly things like this would wind up creating new areas for cheats. Because I understand that we, as game players, we rarely see behind the curtain.
Right.
In some environments, we never even have the data in full on our side. So much stuff is being handled server side. So theoretically, being able to get your hands on that server side data, the back end code, yeah, I mean, it's strange to think about, but that kind of data is so far and above more dispositive, I guess, $1 million word there, for how the game actually works than even the, best case scenario executable that you wind up having on your side. Think about how much stuff, how much NPC logic or whatever is handled server side rather than client side, and how that would give you key insights as to where to attack for your next cheating software.
That's exactly it. If you know what the anti-cheat is, it's probably a lot easier to breach it with cheats. Um,
For sure.
Somehow I doubt that that's why they did it. I think they probably just did it to prove that they could, or potentially
Mm.
disgruntled friend or family member or former employee themselves, right? That
It's
that did
true. This
that
is coming right on the heels of a of layoffs, right?
precisely. So it could have
Who
been
could
something
be
like
in a
that.
better position to do a socially engineered hack of the company than somebody who just barely
It
left
came
and
from
still
the
knows?
inside. It came from the inside. The call is coming from inside the building, Mac. Um.
Mhm.
Anyway, yeah, I legitimately I think that could have been it. But who knows? It really doesn't matter who did it. Don't do stuff like this. Don't ruin everyone's Christmas by taking down the PlayStation Network and doing this type of stuff. And props to Riot
Yeah.
for not negotiating with hackers. That has been our news for the week.
All right. Well, now we turn to what happened this last week and years before in video game history. And Mr. Nice Guy, I've got a couple of really cool ones. Some stuff that we know about, and some things that hopefully you may or may not remember. Um, I'll start with this one from 2003. Um, Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. Do you remember this game coming out for the original Xbox?
I remember it coming out, and I never played it, but I remember it
Mhm.
being basically silliness. Is my understanding of the game.
Mm,
Like scantily clad
yeah.
volleyball players. You know,
Mhm.
it was more about the attire or lack of attire than it was about volleyball, is what I've heard. I've never played this game, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, I too am given to understand that it was about the extreme physics engine in order to appropriately simulate people jumping up and down. Um, I do think it is worth noting this for its infamy, and I just want to quote a few of the contemporaneous things that were said about this
This is
at
going
the
to be
time.
funny.
GameSpot said Tecmo just went and set the game industry back about 5 years, which I mean, that's some pretty strong. I don't know. How about this? A magazine that's not often known for commenting on video games, Maxim magazine. The sharp graphics and advanced jiggle physics will no doubt prick the interest of lonely gamers, but surprisingly, the game's volleyball action is pretty solid, and that's the most important thing, right?
Interesting.
And this last one from Entertainment Weekly. It's kind of difficult not to get caught up in this goofy title, as you use your volleyball winnings to buy shoes and skimpy clothes for your fellow beach bunnies. So, I will say that Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball, not what I would say will go down in video game history as being necessarily a good game or but I think it's fair to say that it pushed certain boundaries, and if nothing else, it did absolutely generate a lot of interest in video games from magazines, entertainment agencies that otherwise usually don't go anywhere near video games. Maybe, in its own way, it might have, possibly could have, assisted in the mainstreaming
No, stop
of
it.
video games?
Stop it.
No? Okay. It's too much credit. All right, tell you what, let's go and move on to something that actually deserves way more credit than we give. This happens to be Christy Marks. She's a video game developer, and is I struggled as to when exactly to bring her up. Um, and I figured this month was most appropriate because of the release of a few games that she's worked on,
Awesome.
specifically Conquests of Camelot and Conquests of the Longbow. These are two early '90s adventure games published by Sierra back in its heyday. They were point and click adventure games. The Quests of Camelot, of course, was very much an Arthurian legend. Quests of the Longbow, very much a Robin Hood type thing. Good games for the time, but Christy Marks, as both writer and lead on those games, both great games, both ones that I played much after the fact and enjoyed. But the thing that surprised me most about Christy Marks was just how prolific her career is, not only in video games, but also, surprisingly, in our Saturday morning cartoons. And if you'll just come on a little journey with me, um, a lot of the cartoons from the '90s and 2000s, cartoons that I remember very lovingly, have her handiwork. She's written for everything from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the late
Wow.
'80s,
Okay.
early '90s,
Okay.
Beast Wars, Transformers.
Love it.
You remember Beast Wars?
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
Um, He-Man, Spider-Man, Mighty Max,
Wow.
and Reboot. So and now she wasn't like lead writer for any of these. She very much did little bits, little episodes here and there, but I was really shocked at how much of my personal childhood was influenced by Christy Marks. And I figured, like I said, I wasn't exactly sure where to put her in, but the release of Conquests of Camelot and Conquests of the Longbow, yeah, now's the time. She's a fantastic writer, not just for like some of my favorite episodes of Saturday morning cartoons, but also for a couple of really fantastic games.
Awesome. That's
Um,
awesome. Love it.
yeah, well, I guess there are a few others. I mean, this last week, Sonic 3 in 1994, Celeste in 2018 for the PC, a personal favorite of you and I.
Love it. I actually should
Um,
replay it at some point. I never finished like chapter 9. I never finished it.
oof. It's rough, man. It's tough.
Yeah. Great game.
That extra chapter nine's the core, right?
Yes,
That's what we're
sir.
talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. No, that took a long time to get through. So you're in for a bit. Um, I think last one. Obviously, I have to highlight this every time it comes around. So formative for me. It's a very formative year
Yeah.
or a formative week in video games for
Sure.
me. Uh, 1998 released for the PlayStation 1, Resident Evil 2. I won't bore everybody here with a repeat of how exactly it was important or formative for me, but it certainly was one of those games that I remember and will continue to remember very, very fondly. Um, but yeah, that's what I had for history this week.
Fantastic. Well, I like that, Mac. We'll keep things moving. Um, Gamers, generally speaking, not necessarily known as the alpha type in terms of personality, not necessarily known as super aggressive. And so this news story is interesting to me because when we are aggressive, when we are passionate, I feel like sometimes we get kind of a bad rap. So this is on Kotaku.com by Levi Winslow, and we're going to read what he has to say. Genesis 9, a major fighting game tournament, took place over the weekend. There were stellar combos and massive upsets as the super major event for Super Smash Bros. Melee and Ultimate concluded on January 22nd. Unfortunately, while the tournament was underway, one of Canada's top Kayazu players, Michael Riddles Kim, sparked some heated discourse in Ultimate's community around top player privilege and ego problems when he threw his controller after losing a match. Considering one of the best Kayazu and Terry mains in Canada, considered one of the best Kayazu and Terry mains in Canada, Riddles is ranked ninth in all of North America. A member of the sports organization Team Liquid, Riddles is placed in the top 10 in just about every tournament he's competed in, with his last first place win being in November 2022, where he won $11,000. Mac, we're going to skip ahead to what happened. So Riddles found himself in the losers bracket after losing a close set, blah, blah, blah. He won the next two matches in that bracket to wind up facing off against one of France's Lucia main characters, Nassim Leah. This is hard to read. Nassim Leon Labe. The bout started heavily. Long story short, this guy ended up losing and threw his controller. Now, Mac, I watched the video of this, but I want to get your perspective as a gamer. You're not really into competitive stuff, but I know that growing up, at some point, you probably played Smash Brothers, you probably played some Street Fighter, you probably played Mario Kart. Have you, Maction, ever thrown a controller?
Yes, I have thrown a controller.
Can you give us some context? In chat, we want to know from you two, have you thrown a controller and what was the context? Give us some details.
So it would have been, oh, I don't know, the early 2000s, maybe 2004, 2005.
Wow, that recent.
So I was, yeah, I mean, I was what we would call an adult. And there was a game for the original Xbox that was just such a pain,
Really?
and I felt like I was beating my head against the wall, and I did throw the controller. Now, did I throw it across the room? I more of did a spike, controller spike onto
Okay.
the,
Okay.
onto like the I don't know, padded ottoman or whatever in front of me. But still, it was a throw. It did leave my hand, and I was legitimately angry.
You're
So,
being a little
so
bit
yeah,
vague.
the
What game?
the game in question, Ninja Gaiden for the original Xbox.
Okay, so I get that. That's a tough game. I could see people, wanting to throw a controller during Dark Souls, getting frustrated while you're playing a game online. Have I ever thrown a controller? Absolutely. I remember playing oh, what game was it? Cuz I can think of two controllers I've thrown. One I believe was a PlayStation 2 controller. Playing NBA 2K against my brother, either NBA 2K or NBA Live, those games used to get heated. They would get heated. Um, it was so intense, and I miss those days. But anyway, and the other time, I feel like I threw a Super Nintendo controller once, and it might have been during Mario Kart because he kept getting all the items or something. My brother, and I remember it like popped open, but didn't break. Like it popped open, but I was able to like snap it back together. So that's two
Mm.
times I can remember throwing a controller many, many years ago. My question, I guess, for you, Max, surrounding this guy, and I guess we have some comments in the chat we'll read in a minute. Is this as big a deal as people are making out of it?
I don't know. Was anybody hurt?
No, I saw the video. It looks like he lost. He was just like head in hands, like processing for like 90 seconds, picked up his controller, threw it on the ground, got his stuff, and left.
Okay. Um, was the controller like, I don't know, somebody's heirloom or
Was the controller a baby? Um, no, I don't think it was any of those things.
okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why exactly some people are thinking that this is necessarily a big deal. But then again, maybe I'm weird. Uh, Maybe throwing a controller is a much rarer thing than I think. Um, I guess I can see what you might be saying, that it's just like, "Oh, well, you're supposed to be a professional
That's not what
in
I'm
a
saying.
public situation." I mean, oh, not you. I'm trying to, like,
Oh, right,
hypotheticalize,
right,
you know
right.
what I mean? Um, and, ugh, I don't know, though. I feel like this seems just kinda human to me. Um,
People are saying it's a thing about player privilege, and I disagree. This guy, I mean, he's on Team Liquid. He's competing at the highest level, and he lost much earlier than he expected to. Now, we constantly, if you watch sports, you see athletes, traditional athletes, knock over a Gatorade
mm,
tub, right? Kicking chairs, punching
yes.
a chalkboard or a whiteboard. I mean, this
Yeah.
this stuff happens when you are grinding, and your whole purpose is to accomplish a
Mm,
task, and you don't accomplish that task. You're going to be frustrated. Now, esports are sports, right? They're
mhm.
electronic sports, um, and so this guy, he's putting in work. Maybe he's even running to keep his reflexes up. Like maybe he's training physically as well, just like a real traditional athlete. And so when he loses, he gets mad. And I don't think this is as big a deal as people are making out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I hadn't thought about that, Mr. Nice Guy, of which I'm ashamed. Being a sports ball expert, I have obviously seen these many times when the people throw the Gatorade bottles and such. But yeah, I mean, why aren't we giving them a bigger, a rougher time about it?
Yeah, no, fair. And we got some comments in the chat. Some I think are not real, but we'll pick a couple. So, Galvatron says, "I've never thrown a controller, but I once threw my pet guinea pig out the window when I got hit by a last-second blue shell." Uh, that's wrong, and I hope Pete is not listening. And then Ralph says he's never thrown, or no, he has thrown a controller, but he can't remember why, but it didn't break. Controllers nowadays, Mac, I feel like they're too expensive to throw.
Oh, that's the truth, man. Yeah, I would feel bad if I threw a controller that cost more than like $20.
Right,
I'd
I agree.
I'd just be sick.
Right, it'd be bad. Well, I mean, once again, I feel like we're all in agreement here. People lose their temper. Um, Gamers lose their temper. We're all human, and that has been our topic of the week.
Yeah. All right. Well, now we turn to a crowdfunding project that's trying to get off of the ground. We call this Kick or Kick Start because we'll say whether or not we think it should be kicked out of here or whether it should be kick started. This one's a little bit different. It's called the Shadow Maze. So, to sort of give you an idea, if you liked the visuals of games like Scorn, or perhaps the Geiger style of the early Alien movies, if you enjoyed combat from games like Undertale and exploration like Eye of the Beholder or Chamber of the Sci-Fi Mutant Princess or Cult, those last two, that's the same game, just the different names that it was released on, whether in Europe or the United States. The US was Chamber of the Sci-Fi Mutant Princess. Then anyway, this is quite probably your game. A pixel art action strategy game with a few puzzles and exploration for good measure. So the indie developer, Frank Dertery, or as he's known, Choloco, I think, out of Paris, is looking for just over $1,000 to make this game happen. It is currently 80% funded and has half of a month to go. Now, he's already done 25 Kickstarters in the past, so this is not his first Kickstarter.
Okay.
And about 3/4 of his Kickstarters have actually been successful. I would say that most of the ones I skimmed through the backlog, most of them are not my kind of game, but hey, different strokes for different folks. Now, the supposed launch date is April of this year for PC. So he's got like 2 to 3 months to get this game done for him and his 3-person team. I'll just throw this quotation near the bottom. Quote, "The game is already well advanced, but I need your support to finish it." End quote. Um, they are asking a $6 minimum buy-in to get a digital copy of the game with various tiers that have
Asking
more
how much?
stuff in there. $6.
Okay.
So some things, I mean, there's not a lot here. There's no video to look at. There's just the things that we see there. I like that it's pixel art. In spite of it being, well advanced, there is no playable demo. Um, I hate to steal all your thunder, but Mr. Nice Guy, any hot takes?
I mean, the only thing I'll say is I was mad that there wasn't a video.
Mm,
But I mean, he has. It says here that he's made other games, and it lists one of them called Dagolarax on Steam. And so I googled that quickly here. It's currently on sale, 80%
mm,
off for 99 cents. It has mixed reviews, only 276 reviews, released in February of 2017. It looks kind of like what's that
mm.
game, Mac? Another World or something. Um,
Oh, yeah, I love that game.
it looks kind of like that in terms of style, but it looks like he's trying to do too many
Mm,
things with this game, this old game. Um,
mm,
I got to
mhm,
give him props because, like you said, if he's done 25 Kickstarters and most of them get funded, he's doing something right. But once again, unless you're his mom or his cousin or his good friend, why support this when you could just wait for it to come out, see if it's going to be any good, and then buy it on sale for 80% off on Steam, like his other game? The last thing I will say, and I got to pull this back up real quick, pull his Kickstarter back up. What is the $1,000 for? He's only asking for
uh,
$1,087, and then it
mhm.
looks like he's adding additional levels if he hits stretch goals. I don't like that.
I understand adding more stuff, adding more stretch goals, maybe even adding I feel kind of like you were saying, adding levels seems a little eh. I like it when features get added as
Yeah, yeah,
stretch goals, but not so much levels. It makes me feel like the game isn't complete.
agree.
New features makes me feel like, oh, icing on the cake. But more levels makes me feel like, oh, so why wasn't this part of the base game?
Right.
And maybe that's just me being weird.
No, it's like when DLC is on the disc. It's like
Mm,
this was
hmm.
here, but you're gonna make me pay extra for it. Come on now, just give it to me in the beginning. It's part of the game. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Well, you know, you know me. I've got a rule, and that is you gotta show me that you can bring this all together: the music, the backgrounds, the mechanics. And the way you do that is with a playable demo. And sadly, in spite of this, again, being very well advanced, it doesn't have a playable demo. And that not only makes me sad, but also, no matter how much I might wish well of this project, this team, I've got to say, kick.
Yeah, I gotta say, Kick as well. I think it's kind of cool that he has put out so many games. I think that he should. I don't know. I don't even know what he should do. Keep making games, dude. Don't let our seriously. Don't let our dislike of your Kickstarter form make you not keep making games. Like, keep going for it, and eventually, maybe you'll have one that is a big hit if that's your goal.
Yeah. I mean, yep.
Kick for me.
All right. Well, that's kick or kickstart. Once again, we wish you well, but this one's just not for us.
All right. Well, now it's time for Nerd Flex A
A
woo-hoo.
woo-hoo.
A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the host. And last week I think they did, didn't they? Or did we get one right last week? I can't remember.
No,
We got one.
we did get one right.
We got one of three.
Mhm.
Well, hey,
Which, while I'm thinking about it, it was in fact the question from was I said it was from Landon. In fact, it was from Charlie, not Landon. My bad.
shout out to Charlie. Well, let's get things started. As you know, if you're here live, you're welcome to get questions in the chat. They have to be multiple choice and they have to be gaming related. Mac, I'm excited to do this live in Portland in a couple weeks. It's gonna be
Me
fun.
too. Oh, I think it's going to be great.
And sometimes our viewers are feeling a little bit shy, don't want to get questions in the chat. In that case, we have a backup. We have a test bank of questions, which we will go to start off today's episode. All right. So I click the random button. All right. Well, sometimes they come up and I think they're easy, but we'll go with them anyway because this is random. FPS, so first person shooter. What is the name of the dinosaur themed FPS that debuted on the N64 in 1997? I think I know this one, Mac.
I think so too. I think it's Turok.
I'm like 99%
But
sure it's
was it
Turok.
like Turok Seeds of Evil or something?
I don't think it was. I think it was just Turok. And then Turok 2 may have had a subtitle or
Okay.
but I think it's just Turok. And I think that's an acceptable answer. Turok, final answer. I never played it. Did you ever play it, Mac? Any memories?
I did play it, and as a matter of fact, because I've got an EverDrive for my Nintendo 64, I could play it at any point in time, but I don't remember being all that intrigued by it. I feel like GoldenEye 64 scratched that itch more for me than Turok did. So I stuck with one instead of the other.
Yeah, now curious, and I don't want to get too off topic. Are you still a fan of GoldenEye style games?
Yes,
So
insofar as I have the opportunity to play it with awesome people like
so
you.
this is totally off topic, but I was looking at a video this week of like the best VR mods out there, and there's a game that was
Mhm.
originally made not in VR called No One Lives Forever 2. And it came out in 2002 for the PC. Apparently it's now hard to find a copy, but it's very much in the style of GoldenEye, but a little more recent.
Mm.
And I think it'd be fun to mess around on sometime. I'm just putting that out there for the viewers and for Mac. Nobody Lives Forever 2. Looks like a fun game. I don't think it's on Steam. Anyway, moving on. Next question. There's one in the
Oh,
chat, Mac. You
did
want
we
to
get
read
it
it?
right?
Oh yeah, we did get it right. It was Turok.
Okay, splendid. Yeah.
And
So
this
Galvatron.
question,
a- Uh-huh.
I
Yep.
don't know if we can do this. This is a silly question. Um, we can read it, but it's silly. Mac, do you want to read it?
You know what? I will read it, but I will discount the ones that I immediately know are jokes. So, who was Kratos's original voice actor? Christopher Judge, Nolan North, Troy Baker, Terrence Carson, Jaleel White, Robert Aiken Downs. Yep. The rest of them, such as Kevin Hart, Chris Tucker, Chris Pratt, Gilbert Gottfried, Dikembe Mutombo. I hope I said his name right. I'm 99% sure are all jokes there.
Yeah, all of
Um,
these are silly, and I didn't realize he was asking about original voice actor. I thought he was asking now, which is an obvious answer.
uh,
So this is a good question.
so we know it's not Christopher Judge.
Right, he's the voice actor now. Troy Baker does Joel from The Last of Us. And so, I mean, that's actually a possibility. I legitimately don't know the answer to this question, but we can work through it. So, I mean, we know it's not Christopher Judge. Nolan North does Nathan Drake from Uncharted. Troy Baker does a lot of stuff, by the way, besides just Joel from The Last of Us. And then, like, I don't know who Terrence Carson is, but I feel like it's probably either Nolan North or Troy Baker, is my first instinct. Watch it be Terrence Carson, just because I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I don't know. Um, I was Troy Baker. I feel like Troy Baker is somebody, but I think
Yeah,
Troy
he is.
Baker was
So
like
Troy
him.
Baker, he does Nathan Drake from Uncharted. He's older, or excuse me, Norland North does Nathan Drake. Troy Baker does Joel from The Last of Us and a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, that's it.
I
Okay.
I would go with Nolan North
Um,
just because he's older,
mm,
and Troy Baker is probably like around our age, and maybe back when that game was
mm,
out, he wasn't really as big into the voice acting scene. I could be wrong. I would go with
mhm.
Nolan North.
Okay. I'll go with you on that because I just have no idea. So Nolan North, final answer.
Final answer. Let us know in the chat, Galvatron, if that is correct. Oh my gosh, it
Oh
was the
my
one who
gosh,
we
it
didn't
is
know.
Terrence T.C. Carson. Oh, I should have known that because he's from because I remember thinking that as I was watching Living
Stop.
Single. Because T.C. Carson, yeah, because T.C. Carson is Kyle.
Well, then why didn't you
Kyle
say that?
Barker.
Why didn't you say that
I
before we answered?
it because it said Terrence Carson, not T.C. Carson. And that didn't connect for me in my head because every time he's credited on, on thing, it's TC Carson. But Terrence Carson just didn't click. Oh man, I'm disappointed in myself.
You should be.
Yeah, I
No, I'm
should
just, I'm just
be.
kidding, dude. All right,
Well,
well, let's
I'll
get
do better next time.
all right. Let's get one more question in. This is on the test bank. It's a Pokemon question. Where's Spennis when we need him? What quote hears festive music and can't help breaking out into a dance? What hears festive music and can't help breaking out into a dance? Pokemon question.
This can't possibly be correct, but I feel like the answer is Milk Tank.
For some reason, I was thinking of that mime Pokemon. I don't know why. Is it Mr. Mime? Is
Hmm.
that mime Pokemon? Does it dance?
Uh, yeah? Question mark? But yeah, I mean, it's not multiple choice, so we can go with each go with our own.
All right.
But
What did
yeah,
you say? Milk what?
Milk Tank
Milk
was the
Tank.
name of the Pokemon.
Okay, and I'll go with Mr. Mime. Final answers?
Yeah,
Nope. The answer was Ludicolo. Ludicolo.
Ludic. That's got to be one of those Gen 6, Gen 5 Pokemon that I don't know so well.
It is all good. Well, hey, that's been Nerdflex for the week.
All right. Well, now we turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
As you know, I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast. But Mr. Nice Guy, I'm going to need your help refreshing some of my memory because this concerns CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2020, sorry, 2077
Sure.
rather.
Sure.
Now I know that it was released at the end of 2020.
Correct.
But what I don't really know because I wasn't so into the scene is what went wrong with Cyberpunk 2077. Do you remember anything about
Sure,
that?
I do. So there's a couple things. When you are an
Mhm.
established studio, people have a certain expectation for the games you're putting out. CD Projekt Red is probably most well known for putting out The Witcher 3, which is widely accepted as one of, if not the best RPG of all time, right? And so when they started promoting Cyberpunk 2077 and there was some gameplay and it looked really, really cool, people effectively thought, hey, this is going to be The Witcher 3, but in a cyberpunk futuristic world. We can't wait. This is going to be amazing. And if I could summarize what was wrong with it in one sentence, it was extremely buggy. For the sake of time, we'll leave it at that.
Mm,
It was not in a finished game state at the time it released. Now, since then, they've worked to fix it.
mhm. Okay. Well, so at that release, early December 2020, in late December 2020, the investors in the company, so shareholders and the like, brought a class action suit alleging that one, Cyberpunk 2077 was virtually unplayable on the current gen of systems due to bugs. Sounds like that is probably accurate. They further alleged too that Sony removed it from the storefront and refunds were given, which impacted them, their shareholders, their prices. Three, the company suffered reputational harm, so that further impacted them. And four, the company, while not knowing the extent to which the backlash would come, they knew that the game wasn't ready for launch. And these were the things that they were trying to say, we're going to sue CD Projekt Red, hold them accountable for what they felt were these four items. Now, there more class actions would be filed, and eventually all these would be consolidated into one, which reached a settlement agreement in December 2021, a year later, and was just approved this month by the judge on the case. So, we kind of are seeing here for legalese not so much, much in the way of an argument or this claims or that, because the reality is, and I've said this before, I don't like it when we get settlement agreements because when we get settlement agreements, what we don't get is we don't get discovery
Sure.
and we don't get documents. And I don't get to pour over internal emails of people saying things like, oh man, if we put this out there, it's going to be a bloodbath. It's just like, well, what are you going to do? We got a bottom line.
We got a
We don't
family to
get
feed.
exactly. We don't get those sorts of back and forths that you always seem to find in cases like this. Now, I'm not saying that there were definitely emails like that where they're like, "Oh man, this game is gonna bomb." Well, oh well, at least we've all had all these pre-orders, so let's ship it. I'm not saying that there are emails like that, but that's one of the things that I thoroughly appreciate about the process of discovery. Even though it takes long amounts of time. I mean, heck, it took a little bit over 2 years just to have this settlement done.
Sure.
But unfortunately, we're no closer to knowing what the reality of those four claims happens to be, or happened to be on the shoulders of, say, maybe one executive, for example, who was really pushing for it while everybody else was pushing back. And I feel like that's the true sad thing. I'm glad that some people are getting $1.85 million dollars to be separated amongst the people in the class action. But it is a shame that we don't get to know what the story was behind the scenes. And unless something changes, this is where the Ballad of Cyberpunk 2077 class action will end its song.
Yeah. Galvatron makes an interesting comment in the chat. He says one of the sketchy things CD Projekt Red did is it obligated reviewers to only play the PC version. Plus, reviewers could only release the CD Projekt Red's gameplay videos because they knew how many abysmal bugs were in the game.
Oh, I mean, that's the sort of thing that maybe very much would have been. Who knows? Maybe that's why CD Projekt Red offered to do this settlement. Maybe they knew that they had some stuff. Maybe something like that right there happens to. I mean, it seems to lend a lot of credit, in my mind, to these claims that they knew that the game wasn't ready and pushed it anyway.
You know what?
So.
The thing that I like about I agree with you about settlements. The thing I like about a definitive answer in these cases is that it sets a precedent.
Mhm.
And if it sets a precedent that, hey, you cannot put out these types of games, then it stops developers in the future from putting out this type of garbage and making people wait. Who we've talked about this quote all the time on the show. Like a game, I don't even remember. It's Miyamoto, but it's basically saying like a game that's released bad is always bad, but a game that's delayed has the chance of being good. And I believe this game was delayed multiple times, but I mean, we've seen games in development for a decade. And I would have rather seen
Oh,
something like
sure.
that than
As a
something
matter
like
of
this.
fact, the first trailer for Cyberpunk 2077 was in 2013. They showed a trailer at E3 in 2013 for Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah. So I mean, and it also maybe sets a precedent. Don't show the game until you're a year out, or you think you're a year out. Don't show it 8 years before it's coming out. So I don't know. Great legalese, man.
Yeah. Oh, shucks. That's kind of you. But yeah, so now, I mean, that's the show, but like we've got one more segment,
Yeah, we
what
got
we've
one
been
more
watching and
segment.
what we've been playing.
That's right. And we're going to do that now. And you know how it works. If you're here live, let us know in the chat what you've been watching and playing. Mac and I are going to talk about the stuff we're into. Maybe we should start talking about games we want as well, like games we're excited for. But for today, we'll stick to what we usually do. Mac, what you've been watching and what you've been playing, man.
So as for playing, I've more or less finished off Hollow Knight.
Ooh,
But with a little asterisk is that I come to this point near the end of Hollow Knight where I always like wane in my interest. Where I've got the muscle memory, I've got the practice, the skills to beat the end of the game,
right?
but I find myself just not being motivated to actually do it.
Okay.
And yeah, that happened the first time. I came back to it. The game has had many updates since then, but I find that I still lag just before my enthusiasm lags just before the end of the game. So I think I'm going to finish it off, but I'll probably finish it off this week. Um, as for what I've been watching, lots of random YouTube stuff, but also the 1936 Charlie Chaplin movie, Modern Times. Um, it's almost more of a vignette,
Huh.
of many vignettes stitched together than it is actually a like consistent, continuous narrative. But then again, it's 1936. People were just kind of getting used to the medium. Um, anyway, yeah, that's. What about you, Mr. Nice Guy?
Yeah, so what have I been playing? So still playing through Jedi Fallen Order, trying to get through that. I did pick up as part of a recent Steam sale. Steam is always having sales. I love it. I love being more into PC gaming. Picked up Red Dead Redemption 2. What a funny game. I'm really enjoying it. I know I'm years late, but I never played Red Dead Redemption 2 until now. Actually, I take that back. I had started it on Game Pass about a year and a half ago, and then I got taken off Game Pass, so never finished it. But I'm farther than I was before, so it's really really good. Also playing a bunch of indie stuff, dude. I'm always playing emulation stuff on the Steam Deck. Mario Land, Alfred Chicken. Mac, have you ever played Alfred Chicken on Game Boy before?
It is surprisingly enjoyable, that
It's
game.
so good. You've played it?
I have, yeah, thanks to the glory that is emulation. And I want to say a few years back, you recommended it to me. You were like, man, I love this game. You got to try it. I did. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alfred Chicken, definitely something for you to play if you haven't already. It's well worth it.
Play the Game Boy version. Like I don't know how it's not a top 50 game on the Game Boy, but it is what it is. And then as far as what I've been watching, The Last of Us, loving that show. My cousin got me into The Witcher on Netflix. Not The Witcher, but like the prequel show of The Witcher, which is on Netflix, and it's pretty solid. And then Attack on Titan. I'm loving me some anime. Chat is quiet today, but Mac, that's what I've been into, man. You want to take us home today?
You know, Lom, I will say, if you're looking for an anime after Attack on Titan, I found that I enjoyed Trigun, but then again, that's kind of basic. Everybody likes Trigun.
Okay.
And Initial D. Um, Initial D is very much a non-traditional anime in the sense that there's not really much in the way of craziness or superpowers. Anyway, I quite liked it. Galvatron's been watching Legend of Vox Machina season 2. Those first 3 episodes came out this last week, and has been watching The Last of Us. So thanks everybody for coming out and being a part of the show. Once again, come out to Portland Friday, February 17th, 6 o'clock for our live show at Portland Fan Expo, room 110. We hope to see you there. And for anybody who can't, you are always welcome every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central, when we do this live record of the show each week and participate, get those questions in, try and stump us. Twitch.tv/two nerds in a pod. Thanks for coming out this week. Thanks for listening after the fact. Just thanks for being you. Keep it nerdy and be excellent to each other. See ya.